Hello.
Good morning.
I was waiting to see.
Good morning, everyone.
It's so deep. I swear it's the deepest I've ever heard your voice. So here we are. Hello. On day 3. Hello. Of our study, of our discussion this week, all about trusting God in the process. Javie's trusting God in the process this week because we're still all sick. And he's going through the part where you lose your voice because your throat hurts so much. So he's just been like single-handedly putting stock in some cough drops. And he's like, his voice is so ridiculous. I feel so bad.
All the other stuff has gone away. The pain in the head stuff, it's all here in my throat. But anyway, I'm here. I'm going to do my best.
We're here. We're trusting God in the process. But that's the thing we were talking about this week is that, what an interesting timing this is, of course, always with God. It's funny. We think we make plans and God's the one that makes the plans. We make plans and he orders our steps. You know what I mean? We're like, okay, we have to plan out our discussions for the next month. And that's what we do. We plan these out a month in advance to make sure that we're prepared and we have some good stuff. Basically, we just look through the summary and make sure it's relevant. It's something that's a good topic. We ask you guys often, what is it that you want to discuss? What are some good subjects? So let us know for June, by the way, we're planning out June. Let us know what some good subject matter is that you want to discuss in these discussions. And we'll take those tips. We've done that before and had some really great discussions. So we would really like that if you want to go ahead and comment below with some ideas for these. But anyway, so we go find these discussion topics and we put them in a certain order. We're just like, well, this seems like a good order. And then they're like a month out and we don't read ahead. We just look at the summary. So that being said, we didn't know, we haven't been sick in like a couple of years. Nobody in this house. We just don't usually get sick. And we got this virus.
Like this, yeah.
Not like this. Yeah. We got a virus. It's not COVID. We've been tested, but it's this just virus. And it's just, it's the worst. And it happened the week that we're doing the study on trusting God in the process during our hard times. and so we were doing that this week because we just want to make sure that we're not, missing out on the opportunity to do God's work, to walk alongside you guys. And so we're here. And fortunately, the world is a world of technology and conveniences that we can go ahead and still show up for you guys, even though we're sick. So it's safe for you. We can still show up and we don't have to get anyone sick. So we were like, well, it's a good thing we work from home. So that's what's going on this week. And this topic has been really good so far. I'm sure today will be no exception. Today's title is The Consequence of Not Trusting God. I feel like I have to say it like that because it's so dramatic. The consequences of not trusting God.
The consequences of not trusting God. Is that okay?
This is why we're married. You're my favorite. Yes. So thank you for being my spokesman, my voiceover. The consequence. Hey, good morning, Annie. Good morning. Good morning, Monica.
Good morning.
Happy Thursday. It is Thursday. I always think it's Wednesday when we say day 3 because I'm still stuck in our old schedule. But yes, it's Thursday. I can't believe it's already Thursday. Right? So you're like, I'm going to do sign. This is my mime husband, Javie. So actually, I wanted to go over a couple things really quick before we jump in. So number 1, as you usually hear me say, we have a link in the description for the actual study text that we use on the YouVersion Bible app for the topic of our discussion today. And so what you do is you click that link. It will take you to the YouVersion Bible app. If you haven't downloaded it, it'll prompt you to download it. If you're on desktop and not mobile, you don't have to do that. And you can just go directly to the study. But either way, it'll take you to the one we're on. So you don't have to take a look around and try to figure out which one we're on. Also, if you're new to our broadcast, I'm Jessica, and this is my husband, Javie, and he's going to thumbs up you. All right. And we're with the Underdog Ninja Foundation. And at our foundation, we really focus on 3 things, and that is faith, character, and action. If you have faith, it starts with that, right? It starts with having faith, which then builds your character, which then leads to what actions you take. And so here we start Tuesday through Saturday at 8. It's 8 a.m. Pacific time. We do this discussion every morning. or morning for us, maybe afternoon for you. But this is where we focus on building that faith and character. And this will lead us to the action that we need to take in our lives while we are fighting heart disease and any of the other things that we're battling. And so this week is no exception while we battle a virus and whatever it is that you're dealing with. We're here for that too. So
I just want to say, thank God it wasn't COVID, because
thank God it wasn't COVID.
Because if we caught this virus, that means we could have got COVID. We just were lucky.
We are so careful, and
right, and we still got this.
Yeah,
got any virus.
Right.
But I thank God for not getting COVID, and I pray for those families that have to suffer through it, and people had to suffer through it. Man, I couldn't imagine.
Yeah, well, that's why,
and especially seeing our daughter struggle with this virus.
Ooh, yeah, she would have got COVID.
Yeah. I just want to praise God for that.
Yeah, praise God, exactly. Well, she has asthma, and she has illness-induced asthma on top of all the other stuff that she's got going on. She has asthma, and so she doesn't ever really deal with asthma unless she's sick. So that's why we keep a really close eye on making sure that she's not getting sick. She's taking all the supplements she needs to take. We're always washing our hands like crazy, all of that. And of course, due to COVID, we're not really out and about everywhere all the time like we used to be. So, she hasn't really gotten sick. But when she does, she has to deal with asthma. And it really ramps up. We had said in the last discussion that we had, we were in the ER on Sunday night with her because her asthma ramped up so much that we couldn't control the wheezing with our tools that we have at home. So we had to go have them give her treatments there. But man, if she got something like that, it would be pretty devastating. So the Lord has definitely been protecting us from that. So that's really, really good. But so we're thankful for that. Thankful for your guys' prayers while we've been dealing with this week too. Are you ready? Want to jump in? All right, let's do this. We're going to talk about all the consequences today, as per your announcement. Okay. So you will have moments of weakness that test your faith and commitment. Because we are not perfect, chances are you will give in to the weakness a time or two. Your flesh will decide to take the path of least resistance, and the world will be your guide. I'm so thankful that in these moments, God's mercy and grace are abounding and generous. However, please understand that there are consequences to your sin and disobedience. The Bible mentions time and time again stories of godly people who failed to trust God in moments of hardship, and Abraham claimed his wife as his sister more than once out of fear. Moses struck the rock in Numbers 20 in disobedience, and as a result was not able to enter into the promised land. We've all been there, but we've also all experienced the results of not trusting God. Proverbs 11:28 speaks to the consequences of trusting in riches and other things instead of God. The verse says that when we do this, we will fail. No doubt that trusting in the world leads to failure. Furthermore, Proverbs 28:26 says that those who are wise enough to trust in him will be kept safe, as opposed to those who trust in themselves. Here, the correlation is that when we decide to trust God, there is a safety that guards us. How encouraging is that? Such a blessing to know that we have God on our side through thick and thin. Today's devotional wasn't meant to be a fear tactic, but a wise warning to the inevitable consequences of trusting in yourself or the world. I have found that to be true, and you probably have too, but my prayer is that we don't have to face those consequences again. This is a reminder to keep your trust in God through the good, the bad, and the ugly. You will always regret not trusting him, but you will never regret having done so. I completely agree with this. Proverbs 11:28 says, trust in your money and down you go, but the godly flourish like leaves in spring. And down you go. That's great. Proverbs 28:26 says, those who trust their own insight are foolish, but anyone who walks in wisdom is safe. I absolutely love that this is focusing on that we all do this. We've both done it. How many times, especially in our younger years? Oh my gosh, my younger years was just me flailing around my life and trying to figure things out on my own and based on emotion, based on what I thought was logic, based on others' advice, terrible upbringing, all the things. Like,
yeah, but what about doing being disobedient and not trusting him when we know better.
Yes,
When
exactly.
we have come to Christ, we've created our relationship with him, and he's done amazing things in our life. We've seen pure miracles in front of us.
Mhm.
Then within the next second, our trust is tested,
Mhm.
and we fall upon our own understanding, our flesh,
Mhm.
and we respond in that way, and we're disobedient. We are impatient.
Yeah.
We try to justify things
Mhm.
because we want it to go a certain way. Why? Because we're not walking in godly wisdom. We're not walking
Mhm.
in his wisdom. We're leaning upon his wisdom.
That's a great point. When
Right?
we try to justify things and say, well, it's because, right? It's because this, right? Am I right? Does that, when we're justifying things to ourselves or to others, think about it. If God was to say to do something, there would never be like a justification needed. It would just be, if you remember any time that God's been like, hey, I want you to do this. And like, do we ever have to justify it? We just say, well, God asked us to do this. This is what God called us to do. There's no logic or rationalization or justification needed. There's not logical explanation needed. It's not like I have to work it out. Like, well, he probably told us this because blah, blah. It doesn't matter, because he knows more than we do about the big picture. Nobody in the Bible was like, well, God is probably telling us this because based on all this logic. No, God's telling us this because he knows the big picture. He knows what needs to happen in order for something else to happen. It's his work, and he's sovereign, and ultimately he has a bigger plan in place than we could ever imagine, that we could even see. And by the way, his plans have to do with bigger things that we definitely can't see, which is in the spiritual realm. This is stuff that we can't see, literally. So it's only things that he can see. And so when he says to do something, and it's having to do with the work that he needs to have accomplished, and he wants us to be a part of it, so he calls us to something, there's no justification required. There's no thing necessary to explain it. It just is what it is. So when we're justifying something, typically that means we don't believe this is necessarily what God called us to do. Doesn't mean it's against God all the time. It just means it may be something that we decided on. We had a big move that we did when we moved from Utah to Charlotte, and the whole time we were looking for ways to know that if it was God calling us there. Just look, we were really searching, and then justifying, and then searching, and we stretched. And the thing is that we didn't feel like, I don't think we did anything terribly wrong. We were moving. We looked for an opportunity to get our daughter out of a place that was that the air was really bad for her there. We had all kinds of really good reasons. But it wasn't that God called us to that. It was like, okay, and everything just flew and it moved. And we just knew that it was God doing it. Whereas when we moved to the Seattle area from Charlotte, it was exactly like that. We hadn't even really planned on it. God called us to that. We did need to move. We needed to change our financial situation. But God fixed that with a move across the country. And we weren't ready for that. We were like, okay, this is what we're doing. And it turned out to be one of the biggest blessings that ever happened.
And it didn't make sense.
There was no real logic behind it. Everything fell into place.
When we did all that, we had just bought our house, sold the house within a year or less.
Yeah.
Of owning that house.
Right.
None of it made sense. Yet the opposite was true, where we wanted this particular thing to move, and move specifically to Charlotte. And so we justified everything.
We pushed the issue.
And we continued to push the issue. And it wasn't that I don't believe, because it was great living there. We loved
it was great living there.
If it was possible, we would have stayed there. But the thing is we disobeyed his timing.
Yeah.
Meaning
exactly.
He probably, yes, we needed to get out of there because of the air our daughter. We needed to find a way out and get it out of there. Yes, but we needed to listen to his timing.
Right.
And we were impatient
Right.
in that.
Very.
We were like, well, now's the time. Let's make it happen. There were so many times
And we did make it happen.
that there were things along the way that were red flags.
Yeah.
There were stops.
There were stops. Yeah. Like, hey guys, stop. And then we were like,
and we blew right through them.
Yeah.
And we justified that. And therefore, even though God was with us, there were consequences to our disobedience.
The timing wasn't right for things.
And that's
there was
why
all kinds of things.
we struggled there. We loved it there. We met some good friends there.
Our home church is there.
Our home church is there.
Ooh, our home church.
And God, like I said, God was with us.
Yeah.
But just like a parent, as a parent, you have to lay down the law, right? With your children, you have to teach them consequences, yet you love them.
Right.
And you're going to help them and support them, yet they still need to suffer the consequences. There still needs to be consequences. And so that's really what I felt.
Mm-hmm.
But then he let us, okay, we're going to give you another shot here.
Yeah. Okay. Next steps.
But I'm going to stretch your faith. You're going to have to do something that you don't want to do. You are going to leave a place that you just got here. You're not even unpacked, really. And you love it here. This is where you wanted to be. I remember that. I remember when we were sitting there, we're in our bedroom, and God really spoke to both of us. Do you love me? Do you love me enough to give this up?
Mm-hmm.
You're here. You love it here. You have a good church family. But do you love me enough to trust me and to give it all up? And where we were like, no, but help us here.
Yeah.
Lord, help us here.
Yeah, we love you, but
yeah. And we struggled a little bit with that. But then we heard him loud and clear. I remember we're like, once we realized our mistake, right?
Yeah, we had an epiphany where we were sitting there. Hey, good morning, Irene. Good rising, y'all. She says, good rising. I feel like I have to do this. Good rising. I'm Russian now? I don't know. So we had this epiphany conversation where we were sitting there, and God will give you clarity. All of a sudden, we realized all the red flags along the way, what we had done. Yeah, you're right. I remember that standing in our bathroom. I remember this clearly, and us saying, hold on. We did this and we did this and we pushed the issue on this. And I cried and I cried and I cried because because my biggest thing is I do not like disobeying God, because I did it for so long when I was young that it really, it's like rebelling against like a favorite parent, like this person who was just everything to you, and you went out and rebelled against them for years. And then when you reconcile, it's like, you never want that feeling again. You never want to go there again. You never want to be that person again. So that's how I am with God. I'm like, no, I don't ever want to be that person again. I don't ever want to do something. God knows better. He knows best. He's the one that fixed everything I destroyed. He's the one that made me not, traumatized, person I came out of my childhood as. He's the one that fixed everything in me. And I definitely don't ever want to do anything against what he's asking me to do, because I know better. Especially when you know better, right? And so the consequences are a little bit, when your child knows better, it's like they're deliberately being disobedient. I don't ever want to be that person either. So when we figured this out, I was devastated. I was like, did we really do that? Because it was clarity. We didn't even realize. We were just so determined to be these people, because we always push through. We always make it happen. We always are like, don't give up. It wasn't like we were trying to be rebellious. We didn't even realize we were doing it until we looked back and we went, oh my gosh, we didn't even stop to think that these were roadblocks, that these were God's stop. this is not my timing. It's not time yet. I have the perfect timing for this. I know this is what you want. And it was just more about, we were so focused on what we wanted instead of asking God and then listening. That's the problem. That's what's what happened. So see, the reason why we bring this up, sorry, my nose itches because I have parts of this virus.
I don't even think we've even talked about it beyond you and me.
Yeah, I don't even think we brought this up.
Look at this. We are out just.
Yeah, I think this was just something we learned and we not kept to ourselves, but we just didn't feel like it was something that, it wasn't like something we needed to share with everybody. It wasn't really a topic of conversation. But I love it. No, I love this because it's such a great example. I think that the reason why this is relevant to this is that it's not always about flat out rebelling against God. It's sometimes about just not taking the time to talk to God, hear him and what he wants, and then doing that, even if it doesn't make sense according to the timing that you have. You know, we have some conversations to have after this. I'm realizing after this broadcast about some things that we've been talking about. God's really speaking to me right now. He's speaking to me about our own personal situations right now. But just because we have a lot of things right now we're really doing in faith, and just with our businesses and just with our lives, and I'm seeing through this discussion some things that God's telling us, and it's so great because God will be clear with you. You just have to be willing to have the conversation. And when you're so focused on what you want and the way that you think it should happen is a big one, then you can't hear him telling you the way that he thinks it should happen. And it's kind of it gets in your way when it's like, well, okay, God, but that doesn't make sense. Okay, but we don't have all the information. When you have kids and you're explaining something needs to happen to them, and they go, well, why don't we just do this? But they clearly are children, and not only do they not have all the information about the situation, but they don't have the capacity to understand everything about the world and about the way it works and why we would even make decisions as adults the way that we do. We don't have the capacity sometimes to even understand what God's doing and why. So of course it doesn't make sense till sometimes afterwards, and we go, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense now. Right, because you've seen it play out, and there's no way that we could have known that. You know, there's things that God prepared us for the pandemic, looking back.
Yeah.
And we would have never understood that was in preparation for something that none of us could have seen coming.
It didn't make sense.
It didn't make sense. There was things that financially we were doing before the pandemic that were stuff that God told us to do that we were like, okay, that sounds cool. And we didn't really understand why until that hit. And we were like, we looked at each other one day and we were like, no way. God had us do that. That is crazy. Like, that's the kind of stuff that you have to remember. He's your, front man. He's like out there seeing everything that's out in front and knowing what's coming. I mean, he's asking you to do something. He's aligning you and positioning you for things. So it doesn't mean the consequences are punishment either. When this says consequences for not trusting God, it just means the timing could be screwed up now. The fact that you're being disobedient, and so that takes you it distances you, puts distance between you and God because you're not in total alignment, which we can all also obviously fix. I mean, we can fix that, which we did. But that's part of the consequences. Part of the consequences could be that you now, because the timing is screwed up, you're not aligned for the blessings the way that you would be, or even the opportunities, the doors that would have been open for you. Now the timing, you've got to come back around and fix it and do it again.
Yeah, well,
try it again.
It's like what we were talking about the last few days. Mm-hmm. We're talking about those two different roads. We have a goal. We have something we want to do.
Right.
And sometimes God's pointing us to this direction and it's the long road.
It doesn't make sense.
It's the heavy road. It doesn't make sense going that way. I got a straight shot here.
Right.
So we try to justify to God why we need to go here, why we need to go this direction. Mm-hmm. But the problem is that we're not going that direction isn't going to equip us in order to receive the goal in the end. You may get there, and just like our case, we get there, but we weren't equipped to sustain ourselves there.
We watched a movie last night, or part of a movie, before we had to go to bed. We'll watch the other half later. But there was a quote in this movie that is incredible. And I mean, I'm going to use this from now on because it was really, it was summed up in a way that it's stuff that we say all the time, but it was summed up in a way that's so easy to understand and so powerful. It was a coach talking to a football player. And the football player was like, I have to work so hard for everything. I am the one that has to come from behind. These guys have it easy. They just have these talents given to them. They can just do it. And I have to fight for a scholarship and all this. And the coach looked at him and it was so incredible. He goes, if two guys were given, or two guys have $10,000, one was handed $10,000. And the other guy had to work really hard for $10,000. He had to really put in the work. He finally made it and he has $10,000. Both guys have $10,000. But the guy who had to work for it has so much more now in the process. Which guy do you think is better off? And I was like, yes, because that is what we're saying. You're better off getting to the goal with the long path or the hard path or the path of resistance.
Right.
And you still end up there, but now you're equipped not only to do what you need to do there, right, but you're stronger and better off than the guy who took the short path and just got there and was like, cool, I'm here.
It's the teaching them to fish rather than just
right,
giving them the fish.
I want to bring up Irene's comment. I was just talking to Jeff about how rejection is really God's protection.
Yes.
Yeah, no doubt. And I do know. And there's so many things in our lives that not only does it not make sense sometimes when God asks us to do things, but it also doesn't make sense when he gives us rejection, like he stops at an opportunity from happening, or we get fired from a job or let go, or, a relationship gets broken up, or friends just ghost us and like take off. People get removed from our lives. That all feels like rejection. But sometimes rejection can feel like, somebody coming against us. It's not even somebody that we want around. Maybe it's a toxic person that won't leave your life. And you're just like doing everything you can to protect your family from that kind of like vibe, or you're, just realizing that God, removed this person for a reason, but somehow they're still sort of like, won't leave your space. And that can feel like rejection too, when it's a personal attack all the time. But God's protecting you, right, by having the space there. So he's always protecting you in a way that, the rejection could come in many forms, right? That's an attack. And the reason why I bring that up too is because sometimes things are just spiritual attacks. The Bible talks about how we're not fighting flesh and blood. We're not fighting the attacks from actual people. Sometimes we're fighting a spiritual attack. If you'll notice, sometimes you get attacks right at the time you're about to do something amazing with God. God's doing something in your life. You're following a mission or a calling, and just something God called you to, and you're really like going for it with God, and you're about to have a breakthrough. You'll see all these arrows coming at you, just like all kinds of weird things that don't make any sense will happen, and you're like, "What? This makes no sense. This is the craziest timing. So random." We say, right? It's not. It's an attack on what you're doing, and it's not necessarily that rejection you're feeling in those moments of attack. Isn't you don't have to give that time and space. You don't have to give that energy, because what it is, it's just an attack. And so God will protect you. God is protecting you, but you've got to be on board. You've got to say, you know what? You okay? Here you go. The tissue.
Sorry.
Shotgun sneezer.
I'm sorry. Oh man.
You okay?
Yeah.
Hey, we're battling through it today. It's an attack on us spiritually. So, God will protect us through that, but we also have to be on board and understand that that's what it is. Bless you. Irene says,
Thank you.
We have to just understand that there are reasons for all these things, and that we can't take everything so personally. And we have to be on board with that God's leading us through something. And that, by the way, it's not a rejection of our plans and our desires when God changes the plan. It's not a rejection of God rejecting us or not wanting what's best for us. It's actually the opposite. He's saying, like we would say to our children, I know what you want and I'm going to give that to you, but it has to happen a certain way so that you even get it. Like, you just don't understand yet what that looks like or what that has to look like.
Yeah.
Because you don't have the capacity to understand all the things, right?
Yeah.
Ooh.
One of the things that you just brought up, what about those attacks? Those attacks that come up upon us. And we want to respond. People make up lies and distortions about you, and they're spreading lies and gossip about you. And you get angry, obviously. You want to defend yourself. How dare they say these things? And how, and you know that you can quickly and easily defend yourself on bold-faced lies, and God tells you no.
Right.
God tells you
no.
You're not going to say a word.
Yeah.
You're not going to respond. Now, there have been times that the same things happen, and God has given us a green light, and we've done that. And
definitely God's like, no, I want you to defend yourself.
And God has been with us.
Yeah.
And he's given us favor through that.
But that's listening to God, though.
But we're listening to God.
Right.
And when we respond in a way that we're not responding out of anger, we're responding out of love, but defending ourselves very aggressively. That is possible.
Right.
It's like, maybe seems counterintuitive. And then, so in that moment, we're able to respond and defend ourselves. But then the next moment, God says no, and it doesn't make sense. You're like, but God, this is obviously a lie. But God, this is not how it played out. And it's easily explained.
God, this isn't who I am. God, they don't know me.
And I could easily explain this. I just have to do this, this, and this.
Right.
They're defaming my name. This is bold-faced lying. He says, no, let me handle it.
Right.
And then you let him handle it, and nothing happens. And it just continues and continues. And it's a little bit of frustration going on there. That's that flesh wanting to respond. And God says, no, don't, no, I have it.
Right.
And only thing you could do is trust him. And it doesn't make sense. But the consequences of, if we were to do that, if you go ahead and not listen to God, he, like you said, he knows better. Yeah. He knows the full situation.
He knows where the pitfalls are.
Yes. And what you're doing is you're falling into the enemy's trap, and it's God's protection for you.
That's the thing, is that keep in mind, when you're being attacked by people, whether it's people from your past or people from in a business situation, people that don't know you, just any of that, when you're being attacked, that is the enemy's attack. That is something that, people don't normally do to each other. Okay. That's the enemy's involvement in their life and in their story. And, that it always says more about them than it does you. Just know that. But it's not really a personal attack necessarily from them, even though it feels like a personal attack from them. I realize that. I mean, we could explain all the reasons why we believe it's a personal attack from them. And that might be true. But really, my point is it's an attack from the enemy. And it's just like any other attack. We have to make sure we're vigilant about making sure we understand that we have to listen to God. We have to trust the process that God's taking us through. His timing in their life is just as important as his timing in our life. And so we have to make sure that we're in alignment with God, because he's got everything under control. And if we're the wild children that just run around doing whatever we want and acting on emotion or, lack of information, right? You see those movies where people they don't have all the information, and they're just like the person that runs out in the middle of something and screws everything up because they're not informed.
Exactly right. I was just going to.
Oh, really? That's funny.
Same thing. Have you ever seen let's say a war movie, right? And you have the guy in charge, the colonel or general, whatever, and he's saying, okay, we need to hold the line. We need to hold it. Don't move. Don't move. Don't do anything.
Yeah.
And you always have that guy. You always have that guy that's, he's so amped up.
He's so mad.
He's so impatient, so mad. He's like, He's arguing the point. He's like, they're right there. We have them. And the commander,
we can take them.
The commander's saying, no, wait, hold. And the guy's just amped up. And then he goes out, not only blows his cover, blows everybody else's cover, and then he blows up. He steps on a landmine, or whatever. He falls into the trap that the enemy had set forth. And the commander knew that. He was waiting for the right time. Yep. And there's that guy that blows it. Right. And if he would have just listened.
But the commander doesn't feel like he needs to explain all his reasons. The fact is that he's in the command. So all he should need to say is no.
Because the commander has eyes on the whole picture.
Right.
He sees the whole picture. This guy is so amped up, he doesn't see the whole picture.
I'm the guy?
No. Wait, look. I maybe have one finger pointed at you, but I have 4 fingers pointed at me.
I'm just kidding. Okay? No, but so the reason we bring this up is because I want to think through like all the situations where it's not just about decisions that we're making. It's not just about listening to God when we're asking him for, decisions we need to make. It's sometimes attacks that are coming on us. It could be an attack, like I said, from a person. It could be, an illness like this. It could be an attack. I'm sneezing like crazy, you guys. We're such a mess today. I'm like, my eyes are watering. We're going to end this because I don't think
we're here.
But we're here. I'm like, but anyway, speaking of attacks, but the consequences of not trusting God is what we're talking about today. If you're just joining us, and basically it's just about, it's not about the consequences or like you did with your voice, but it's really more about if you listen to God, then and listen to what he has to say, whether it makes sense or not. Especially when the timing doesn't make sense. It's like, oh, well, that can't possibly happen by then. You're talking to God, you realize. You're saying to God, that's not possible. And he's like, okay, let's have this conversation again. I'm God. Anything's possible. I wrote it in the book. Let's just bring that back up. Like anything's possible.
He's like that author that always brings up his book.
Yeah, he's like, okay, nice to meet you. You could get your copy at www.imgod.com. Okay. But seriously, it's like that. It's like, he reminds us constantly. We're rationalizing. We do this knowing him and being close to him. We still go, okay, but what about this? He's like, okay.
Did you know I wrote a book?
Did you know that I wrote a book? It's really popular. And, It's been around a long time. And in that book, I say everything's possible because I'm God. So anyway, I burned a bush. Come on. but I parted a sea. Remember that? But you know what? The thing is that consequences don't mean punishment as much as they just mean results. I would say this also means results. Sometimes it's like punishment, but sometimes it's just result. Your results are different and not as good as they would have been if you would have followed the path. Right, the way, the right path, or not the right path. Wow, I can't talk. Followed the path the way that God would have asked you to do it. That's what I was trying to say, and I screwed that up. But if you just follow what he's saying and understand that even if it doesn't make sense or isn't clear, the consequences of not doing that could just be that your results are different and not what you would have wanted, not what God would have planned. And he eventually will bring you back around to that again. But it's not the same as it would have been if you would have just done it. If you would have just listened, if you would have just stopped, if you would have just shut your mouth, if you would have just said these things or not said these things, whatever it is he's asking you to do or not do, that's what you need to be doing. So, or not doing. So it's this amazing thing when we have this covenant with God and this trust. It's like always having that secret weapon, always having that intel, always having that protection of just being able to navigate life with the right information and, not always having to have all the details. I don't need all the details. I just need the direction to go. When somebody is in when you've got intel, in a spy mission, or I don't know, like we always go to these movies, but when the person is being navigated through the building, like somebody will have the blueprint of a building and the person that goes in doesn't have the blueprint. They're trusting the person outside that has the eyes on the whole building and they can see where they are with their GPS, right? Or their radar or whatever you want to call it. So they're walking them through. They're like, okay, take a left. Okay, take a right. Okay, nope, stop. They're not going, stop because here's what's happening. And then they give them this whole rundown of everything they see in the building. No, they don't have time for that. They just need to know. Just tell me which way to go. I don't care. I trust you. I don't need to know all of your reasons. They don't go, wait, why do you want me to stop?
Right.
Let's talk about all the reasons you want me to stop. No, just You said stop.
But that's a perfect example of trusting the process. The person that is on the ground, that is in the building, walking through this maze of this building, is trusting the process of the person leading them and guiding them through these obstacles, right? Hold, because if you hold, you're holding because if you move, then the enemy will see you, or
go the wrong direction. You're not going to end up at the goal. Yeah.
So that's trusting God in the process, trusting the man in the sky.
Right? The man in the sky.
The guy, he has the whole blueprint of our life.
Yep.
And sometimes we have to hold. Sometimes we have to go left, not right, when it doesn't make sense going that way.
And you know what's something important about that, though, I just realized I said, is not just trusting the process. But the reason that person's trusting the process is because they're trusting the person giving them the directions. Yeah. So we can't really trust the process until we trust the source of the process. So we have to be able to trust God. And that's something that we can't do for you. We can only give you, we all have to do that for ourselves. I can only just give you, direction or telling you maybe go read the Bible, be in prayer, understand this is God's character. I can tell you all about my experience, but I can't trust God for you. Nobody can. It's between you and God. So get down in your, prayer closet or wherever that is, whatever. It doesn't have to be a closet, but get on your knees and just ask God, hey, listen, I need to know how to trust you because I don't understand what that means anymore. Or I don't understand what that means because I've never understood that. Or no one's ever showed me how to trust you. I just don't understand what this is all about. So please, God, show me how to trust you. Give me some sort of a way to understand how to do that. And then wait and be on board. Listen, our understanding of how we think things should go is not the same as how they should go and how God wants them to go. It's not. We are limited in our capacity of understanding what's really going on in our lives. In others' lives, we don't know the conversations that we don't hear, and God does. We don't know the hearts of those around us like God does. We don't know what's lying around, like the whole blueprint of our lives yet. We don't know the future. There's a lot of information that we don't have, and God has all of that. And so his timing is based on knowing all of that, right? So this is really good conversation today.
No, look, I know that today isn't a popular subject.
Right.
Some of you might say, consequences. Oh, I'm out, right?
Yeah.
And we don't like to talk about the consequences. We want to talk about all the good stuff.
All the blessings, right?
But we can't get to the good stuff until we face certain consequences and know these mistakes that we as humans here on earth make because we are in a sinful world. And it's only by his grace that we are saved. So we have to talk about these consequences. So this isn't a popular subject. We realize that.
Yeah.
But this is something that we have to talk about when it comes to trusting God fully and trusting his process. But I hope that you got something out of today. And if you did, please hit like. If you're watching this on replay, please share this with your friends and your family.
Absolutely.
We really appreciate it.
And if you're watching this from our YouTube channel, make sure that you hit like and share there as well, and subscribe to our channel to support this mission if you haven't already. We really appreciate that. If you want to be notified of all of the broadcasts that we put on there or other content, please hit that bell icon so that you will actually get notified when we go live and when we post new content.
All right, guys. Have a good day.
We love you.
Bye.
God bless.
I'm going to go take some medicine.